Hi everyone, I'm Kevin and welcome to my channel. Today I want to talk to you about eggs in the backcountry, how to package them and how to use them when you get there. So this might not be the best option for everyone, but you could bring chickens with you into the backcountry. Each chicken lays about 1 egg per day, so I recommend 2 chickens per person. Now I recognize this is not the best strategy for everyone. Chickens don't last very long in a sealed food barrel, and if you're on a backpacking trip, although they can scurry pretty quickly, they can't keep it up for very long. So on a full day hike, they're certainly going to fall behind. So perhaps there are some better ways to bring eggs into the backcountry. All right, let's talk about eggs in the backcountry. Obviously, I've got plenty of eggs. We have our own chickens and they supply us with lots and lots of eggs. Eggs are one of those nearly perfect foods. They're full of protein, so they're good for you, and they're very, very popular. People love to have them with breakfast, and they're very versatile. You use them often in baking and other uses. The one problem they have is the packaging. The packaging is a little bit fragile, and they can spoil. So you can certainly bring whole eggs into the backcountry. You're just going to have to package them a little bit more carefully because they are fragile. One of the things I like best for that is one of these egg packs. I've got a 6-pack here. I have a 12-pack that I often use for car camping, and I know that 2 packs are also available. What I like to do is put the eggs into the container with the pointy side up. Because I have natural eggs, I sort them and I don't put long ones like this in. But sort of the average store-bought egg should fit in here really, really well. And that should close okay, but they're going to be a little bit loose inside. What I like to do is grab a piece of paper towel and just fold it up a couple times and put that in the top. And then close it up. Don't want to crush my eggs. There, that's going to keep the eggs from moving around and they'll be a little bit safer in there. I'll also usually on a canoe trip, I'll throw this inside my food barrel. In a backpacking trip, you're going to want to be very, very careful with these and not bang them around very much. So another way you could package these is in some sort of a container, like an old peanut butter jar that you've cleaned out, or an Nalgene bottle. And what you can do, again with the paper towel, is use that as a cushion. So put some in the bottom, put an egg in there, put some more paper towel, another egg, and more paper towel, and you've got yourself a pretty good, it's a little bit bulky for the amount of eggs that you've got, but you've got yourself a pretty good container to protect those eggs. Again, you want to be careful with it. This is a little bit soft compared to an Nalgene bottle, so you want to be pretty careful. But this will work as well. So just how long will a whole egg last in the backcountry? That depends on a lot of things. Temperature, number one, but also where you live and where you get your eggs. If you live in North America and you buy store-bought eggs, those eggs are going to be washed, and that's going to disturb the natural membrane on the egg and make it more prone to spoilage. You'll still probably get a fair amount of time out of an egg, but I wouldn't recommend going too far beyond a couple days. You'll likely get the egg to last a lot longer, but I wouldn't recommend it beyond that. Now, if you're like me and happen to have your own chickens, or if there's an egg farm nearby, or if you live in Europe where they don't wash store-bought eggs, those eggs are going to last an awful long time without refrigeration. Quite honestly, we don't put these in the fridge and we get weeks and weeks and weeks out of them. So, you know, if you're going to go on a longer trip and you can get farm fresh eggs that haven't been washed, use those. They will certainly last an awful lot longer than North American store-bought eggs. And another trick to bring eggs into the backcountry is to pre-break them. So use an Nalgene jar like this, crack your egg, and leave the eggshell behind on your trip. Crack a couple of eggs. 2 eggs fit pretty well inside one of these jars. Now these Nalgene containers are waterproof, so my egg's not going to drip. This is a pretty good method. It's going to last 1 or 2 days in the backcountry, especially in cooler weather. Once you crack an egg, you do want to keep it refrigerated. So this is a good method for the fall or spring seasons. So let's talk about dehydrating eggs for just a minute. I want to be super clear. This is not a process that I recommend at all, but you will find lots and lots of videos of people dehydrating eggs on their own and having pretty good success. What they don't show you is videos afterwards of them eating those eggs and how they feel afterwards. The problem with eggs, there's a couple actually. One of them is that eggs have a pretty high fat content, and that dehydrated egg product can certainly go rancid and will probably go rancid on you at some point, and that could make you ill, and nobody wants to be sick on a backcountry trip. And number 2, eggs can contain salmonella bacteria, which is a bacteria that can be very harmful to you. The risks are pretty low. One of the best sources I found said, the risks are about 1 in 10,000 eggs contain enough bacteria to be harmful. But those risks go up the more eggs you dehydrate, and they go up because you're using a dehydrator. That environment inside a dehydrator, which is warm and moist, is just perfect for bacteria to flourish. And so when you dehydrate eggs, you're certainly increasing the risks of salmonella poisoning. So I don't recommend it at all. And now we have some really great alternatives to bringing whole eggs into the backcountry, and that is egg crystals or freeze-dried eggs. These are awesome. I've got a couple brands here. This is Ova Easy, and this is Pure Choice, a Canadian company. Agua Sabin is another one that makes freeze-dried or egg crystals. These are fantastic. They are not to be confused with the old school egg powder, which tasted terrible. These eggs, when they get rehydrated, behave like fresh eggs and taste like fresh eggs. So this is my number 1 choice in the backcountry now, especially when I'm on a longer trip, is to bring egg crystals. You know what, they are a little bit expensive, but 1 bag like this contains the equivalent of a dozen eggs. So they actually last you quite a while. You can usually get a number of trips out of these things. So let's open up a package and cook up some of these eggs. So let's cook up some of these eggs. I've got 4 tablespoons of egg crystals in this cup. So the recommended ratio for this brand is 2 tablespoons of egg crystals per egg. And to each 2 tablespoons, you add 3 tablespoons of water. So I've got 4 tablespoons in here. I'm going to add 6 tablespoons of water. There we go. Now I'm going to mix that up with a fork. And that's going to look pretty much like scrambled eggs before you cook them. A little bit different. And give it a second to rehydrate. Now when I'm camping in the backcountry, I tend not to bring measuring devices. I tend to pre-measure this and put it in an appropriate container. And you get pretty good at guessing the consistency. If it looks like, scrambled eggs before you cook them, you're probably doing it right. If you've got a little bit too much water in, don't worry. That'll evaporate off as you're cooking. So let's put this aside for a second. Let's get ready to cook these eggs. I'm going to cook the eggs on this stove here. This is an LPG or canister stove. The challenge with this is that it produces a very high heat. You can only reduce it so much. And eggs are a challenge to cook properly, even at home, because you want to use a nice low heat. And sometimes it's hard to achieve that. If you're cooking in the backcountry and you're on a fire, you can adjust the heat down, or you can use an alcohol stove. That'll give you a nice lower heat. But because this is fairly common, I'm going to try to cook my eggs on this, and I'm going to show you a technique to mitigate the high heat. Now, what are we going to cook these eggs in? Ideally, you're going to want a pan like this. This is a nice anodized aluminum pan. It's got a fairly heavy base, so the aluminum disperses the heat very, very well. So this is an ideal pan. It's also non-stick, but I know a lot of backpackers don't bring something this heavy. So let's try a different option. This is a titanium lid on a pot, and it doubles as a frying pan. Titanium is great because it's light, but it is a terrible cooking material because it is prone to hot spots. It's very thin, and it's not a good pan to cook in. But again, I'm going to do it in this pan because it presents the challenge, and we're gonna work on a technique to make this work. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to light my stove. There's my lighter here. There we go. And I'm going to turn that down as much as I can. Okay, so low heat, but it's still pretty hot. Gonna get a fork, and this is some clarified butter that I made, and I'm gonna put a little bit in the pan here to cook those eggs in. I could use a spoon, but I'm doing this kind of as if I was in the back country. I didn't want to get a lot of stuff dirty, so I'm going to melt my butter on this pan. It's going to melt pretty quickly because of the high heat. So we've got that butter melted, and I'm holding the pan off the heat because again, that stove is really hot. The fat is going to help the eggs not stick to the pan, and it's going to help them cook. So let's add the eggs. Just dump them right in, and immediately I'm going to start swirling those eggs around. Now, even at home, this technique works. I saw Gordon Ramsay on television do this, and he's got a couple of videos out where he puts the eggs on the heat, and he stirs and he takes them off.
On a nice sort of generous heat, take it off the heat, go back to the heat, take it off the heat.
Removes them from the heat and let them stir. That gives you the same effect as having a nice low steady heat. Well, almost the same effect. You're going to start to get solid ribbons in the eggs. And you're just going to scrape them off the bottom and keep doing that. When it gets too hot, take it off the heat for a minute and then put them back on. The key to not burning your eggs or having them stick and cooking them properly is just attention. Put them on the heat and then off the heat. Don't let them get too hot. Those are starting to look pretty good. They're getting there. The trick is patience. Now sometimes, well, quite often actually, I will make an omelet, either a nice formal omelet or a more scrambled omelet with peppers and mushrooms and onions. I'll dehydrate those ingredients separately, and if I want to add them to the eggs, I'll add them to the pan first with a little bit of water. I'll get them hot, bring it to a boil, let them rehydrate a little bit, and then I'll add the eggs. Again, if you had too much water, you just let that water evaporate. These are getting there. These are starting to look cooked. So I'm just going to make sure I scrape the corners out because some of that stuff isn't cooked yet. But even though I'm using a very high heat stove and a very poor cooking vessel, I'm getting some pretty good quality scrambled eggs out of this. Again, the trick is patience. All right, so those are looking pretty good. I'm just gonna give it a bit more heat. There we go. I would say those are done. Turn the stove off. There we go. Turn the stove off, and these eggs are ready. And they're pretty good. They taste like real eggs. Needs one more thing. Hot sauce. I just love eggs with a little bit of hot sauce. Those are awesome. Love these eggs. All right, I hope you got something out of this video. If you did, please hit like, share, and subscribe. As always, have a great day. Mm.